Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with School Transportation News. Welcome to the podcast, brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing. Our guest today is Gilbert Rosas, Director to Sustainability and Adaptation for Modesto City Schools in California. They've got some great EV projects going, and Ryan's going to be talking to them. And speaking of Ryan, I want to welcome my co-host to the podcast.
Hello, Tony. Hello, Nation. Obviously, I want to get this out at the top. Our hearts are heavy this week and going forward. Tragically, the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, just mind-numbing, Tony. I mean, it just, we both have young kids, and just what a tragedy. And our hearts go out to the entire community there in Uvalde, Texas, across Texas, and, school districts all over the nation. It's just been such a rough last week. Everybody is talking about this. And, there were police at my daughter's school last week. I think they're going to be there till the end of the school year, which goes till next week. So, I don't know. Unfortunately, just the world we live in, Tony. So,
yeah, heavy hearts, Ryan. Heavy hearts for sure. And
we have some, I don't know, the misfortune of having some articles this month on security, because we've seen a pretty violent school year in a lot of respects. Of course, just punctuated with what happened last week. But security training has come to top of mind, and it's been top of mind for transporters with what happened last week. It happened, of course, at an elementary school, but school buses were involved. Learning after the fact that school buses were evacuating the children and the staff to the Civic Center. We saw some school buses in the background of the many photos and video from the scene, and mentioned in a couple of articles. So school bus playing a vital role in that evacuation and reunification efforts when tragedies like this occur. But certainly we know all too well that the incidents happen on the school bus or around the school bus every day. So coming up at both STN Expo Indianapolis and in Reno this summer, we're going to have some training or some discussions about this. And you can always, read the articles if you head over to stnonline.com. But, again, just wanted to, right up at the top, express our sincere sadness and offer condolences for everyone involved.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Ryan. And, it really evokes memories of Combine and Sandy Hook, where you've got these active shooter situations that really, were absolute tragedies. And you can't forget them, right? You can't forget those children and the families and the community and the halo effect of something like this happening. And I think it just brings us back home to remind us, look, safety and security training needs to be at the forefront of your kind of training regiment when you're talking to your staff, when you're talking to your drivers. You can't sit back and think it's not going to happen to you. You don't want to be that next school that it happens to. You want to do your best to mitigate these sorts of things. So I think, again, it just gives us purpose when something like this happens, when tragedy happens. What can we learn from it, and how we as an industry can mourn, but also learn and adapt and do a better job for our kids, our communities, our families. And, I think, Ryan, we're really committed to that. And I know we'll have lots of articles on the STN website covering a variety of these topics. But, I think it comes back to just refocusing ourselves on that safety and security message.
Absolutely. Well, there was also some other news occurring last week, Tony, that affects the industry. One of the big things is, the Emergency Connectivity Fund closed out last month, or in earlier in May, and the FCC, Federal Communication Commission, that's administering the Emergency Connectivity Fund, came out and said that Tony, it's oversubscribed. So they had about $1 billion or so left. This was the third round of that ECF, and we've reported widely on that. School bus Wi-Fi hotspots, a fundable exercise from this fund that, of course, affect schools and libraries that are under the E-rate program. Evidently, according to the FCC, there's been 2.8 billion with a B funding requests from this third round. It's basically, more than double the available funds. So just showing, Tony, it was kind of undersubscribed the first couple of rounds of applications, but boy, everyone really jumped on it here for the this last go round.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. I saw the press release on it from the FCC, and that caught my eye for sure, Ryan, because I think a lot of school districts we talked to were kind of like, should we apply? Should we not apply? I know a lot did take advantage in school transportation, but the third time's the charm, I guess, to get it done. And it didn't exactly say how many were school transportation operations, but they did say school districts were listed as the top priority that are going to be given the funds. So we'll see what that ends up shaking out to look like. And I know, obviously, the FCC also had made an announcement about E-rate funding that Taylor talked about last week, where there has to be a vote amongst the FCC 5 members and a majority vote. So they need 3 votes, right, to get it done for E-rate to fund Wi-Fi going forward for the school transportation industry. And that would be enormous benefit to school districts to pay for this Wi-Fi technology and all the services in perpetuity going forward, because there's no funding after ECF, right? You get your equipment, you get in maybe for your first year, but what about after that? People don't have the budgets, they're left holding the bag. But if E-rate can significantly subsidize it, then that's a huge benefit to the students to kind of address that learning gap. Because, Ryan, there could be another situation where school buses are needed to kind of come to the rescue, as they seemingly always do. And this is an important thing that's being brought forward by the federal government and the FCC. So we're excited to see that. And I know I sat in on a webinar with the EPA that was kind of breaking down the Clean School Bus program, and they kind of just were releasing the list of prioritized school districts, kind of breaking down how the program would work. And there were a lot of kind of little nuggets in there that I think we covered in depth on stnonline.com on our article. But you want to kind of walk our audience through some of those kind of high points?
Yeah, certainly. So they defined, the priority, as you mentioned, for rural and disadvantaged areas or school districts serving those areas. It's basically based upon some National Center for Education Statistics, the U.S. Census, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So, you can jump in. We have links. You can see if your district is prioritized or not. You probably already are aware. But one of the things that came out from this is, regardless of not if you're a priority district, apply. That's the big thing. EPA has been a little, maybe, I don't know if they use the word concerned, but, where we know that there's $1 billion available each fiscal year under this program. EPA came out and, this year one rebate with the applications open right now, it's only being funded at $500 million. So $250 million for, electric school buses essentially, and $250 million for low emissions, which would be propane essentially, maybe some CNG. Electric could also fall under that as well. So, and what we've heard, and I've mentioned this before, is they're a little bit concerned that it might be undersubscribed. Which was kind of interesting to me. Obviously, they've gotten some feedback or are looking at something that gave them that indication. But I did hear that likely there will be additional grants. In fact, there will be additional grants later this year because, again, they have another $500 million at their disposal that they're going to have to fund. So this is, it's going to be going on for a while. Obviously, we know that we're funded through 2026 fiscal year, but it's going to be extended beyond that because there's, that's when basically you're looking at those funds being awarded. It's going to take time for then there's a whole criteria that EPA listed out where they can then buy the buses and then of course get the infrastructure and there's the delivery and everything. So a lot of information there. If you haven't applied, go do it now. I'm talking a little bit later to Gil Rosas at Modesto City Schools in California, and he talks a little bit about that. You want to go on sam.gov and make sure you have an account. Kind of that's the first step, but definitely dig in, visit stnonline.com and you can get more details.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, what jumped out to me specifically during that EPA webinar is that they specifically said you have to buy the buses. You can't lease the buses. You have to buy them. So I think that, again, there's a lot of new business models out there that have this kind of OPEX versus CAPEX model where they're basically going back to, hey, you got to go to that CAPEX model because simply you can't lease the vehicles. And also they have to remain in service for 5 years serving the district. So there were some caveats there. And any buses that are 2010 or older that you have to sunset, right? Those buses have to be sold, scrapped. They have to kind of know where those buses are going, which is interesting to me that they can be sold. That's kind of an oddity because I figured, you'd want to put those out of service in some capacity. So it'll be interesting how that's perceived in the marketplace.
Yeah, I believe the 2010 and older, they have to be scrapped. It's the 2011 and newer that could be sold.
Got it. There's got to be some caveat there. Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, there's some. So you can again go and look at the program details, the program guide. So we have that up on our articles at stnonline.com as well. You can also, something that jumped out at me is you can stack grants, but they can't be federal. So you can't use, say, DERA and lump that on top of the clean school bus. But if you're in a state like California that has, an alphabet soup of grants available.
Yeah, like HVIP, right? South Coast Air Quality Management Group.
CMAQ, you have the CEC grants, the different, air quality district grants here in California. And then, you go to other states and they're, the local Department of Protection, Environmental Protection or Environmental Quality, you can use those grants. But Justin Wilcox at EPA's Office of Transportation Air Quality did point out, he specifically said this in the webinar, that you need to know where the grants originate because there are a lot of federal grants that are distributed through the state. So you might think it's a state grant, but it's actually a federal grant. So really, he basically said, do your homework, know where the grant's originating. But you can stack. You can also you can apply for mixed fleets. So you can apply for electric school buses right alongside propane. You can do that. But again, just do your homework. As I mentioned, there's a pretty extensive program guide available on our website.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Ryan, before we head to our next guest interview with you, I want to talk to you guys about the TransFinder trifecta. That's Route Finder Plus, Stop Finder, Wayfinder, 3 solutions that work seamlessly together. That's everything you could possibly need. Routing software, parent app, driver app, inventory management solution, location intelligence, and the most accurate maps on the planet. That's because TransFinder is an all-in-one solution provider that school transportation departments need and want. They've built their solution for their clients and for people that might even be their clients yet. They want to talk to you. They've got this, and so do you. Email them at getplus@transfinder.com or call them at 800-373-3609. Again, that's 800-373-3609 to see how you can get help from your friends at TransFinder. All right, up next, Ryan's talking to Gil.
All right, School Transportation Nation, please welcome our next guest, Gilbert Rosas, the Director of Sustainability and Adaptation. Did I say that correctly, Gil?
Oh, yeah.
At Modesto City Schools in California. Hey, Gilbert, it's great to see you.
Great to be here with you, Ryan.
So much has been talked about and continues to get talked about with zero emission school buses. We finally have the EPA clean school bus rebate, year 1 anyways, out. Applications are underway. When it comes to electric school buses, we have very few pioneers in the industry. One of which, of course, California is really kind of been leading the way for several years now. But certainly, Gil, your name is at the top of that list in terms of really kind of early adoption of school buses. You're at Modesto City Schools now. You've been there for about 6 months or so?
2 months. Brand new.
2 months. Oh my! Well, see, it probably feels like 6 months or 6 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Big project that you guys are rolling out a little bit later this year. But you came from Stockton. We wrote about that. Stockton Unified had about 12-15% of its fleet that you worked on getting electric school buses in using all the different grants that are available. But, tell us about your background. So, you're Director of Sustainability and Adaptation. That seems to be a new title that we're seeing a lot more now from school districts. Tell us about what that is and, how you got involved with sustainability.
Okay. Well, I started off with energy conservation, and I have a heating and air conditioning background. But at Stockton, we did quite a bit of energy conservation. We would work on solar. We had 60% of our school sites on solar. And then we went to battery storage. And then we had a Clean Mobility in the Schools pilot program grant that we got. And so, like you said, at Stockton, that was the 15th largest district. We achieved about $12 to $14 million in grants and got 11 buses and 24 chargers. Here at Modesto, in January of this year, the board approved a 30-bus electric school bus purchase from Bluebird Buses. It was actually the largest in the nation's history. I started in March 14th, and so just a couple months now. And we also approved groundbreaking for our infrastructure. So people thought it was silly at first that you're buying buses before you have infrastructure, but with the lead time of things nowadays, we had to get that going right away to coincide the right way. Mm-hmm. We'll break ground June 1st. We'll do most of our yard infrastructure during the summer, get it put back together for school to start, and then start working on pulling wire and getting the chargers and solar panels in. But we will have buses arrive before the end of the year and start running routes with children on them as of January 1. So we're looking forward to that.
Just an amazing, lead time. But you have experience with this because in Stockton, I know we've talked previously about that project, and it happened really fast, didn't it?
Yeah, before 2019, I didn't know anything about electric buses. I was an energy conservation guy. But then this rolled around, and not knowing anything was actually a benefit. So what happened was we set a time frame of 1 year, and typically, you can talk to others, it's usually a 2 to 2.5 year process. And we got it done in 11 and a half months. So we used a lot of the same team members and came over here to Modesto, and we're now going to get it done in less than 7 months. So, I'm also on WRI, World Resources Institute's Electric School Bus Advisory Council, and on some of their working groups. And it really does help to have resources like them looking out for things. But a person really has to educate themselves and try to look at all the different grants and opportunities and funding mechanisms that there are, because there's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And that's so really, your experience at Stockton really has set up a blueprint for you. And it's amazing. Yeah. So 11 and a half months at Stockton, which at the time, I remember when we talked about it last year, because you spoke at the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo in Long Beach. And then you were in Reno last December when we kind of had to move things around, after COVID or during COVID. And I remember how you were saying, it was really unheard of that it was that fast. And now you're really putting the pedal to the metal, if you will.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we've got a lot of good team members. And I have to say that Modesto, the board of trustees are incredible. The superintendent, Sarah Noguchi, is incredible. And Tim Zierle, the CBO. And so it really is a complete team atmosphere here with Roger Orth in maintenance and operations. And so our board has decided that we want to move ahead with all kinds of sustainability initiatives. And we've created a web page. And even though I've only been here 2 months, it's full stacked with a lot of resources for people to look up. So I encourage you to do that. And we've got pictures and kind of updates on all the different things we're doing. But it's great to be here in a great team atmosphere where we're committed to trying to get to, fully electrified as much as we can, as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, and what you were mentioning earlier, you're not just working with school buses. You're the sustainability director for the district. So, buildings, facilities. I think you had mentioned that green lawnmowers, being able to fill student water bottles on campus. You're not using drinking fountains. In terms of transportation, because we talk so much about the buses, right? But it's much larger than that. I mean, there's department buildings. There's the maintenance shops. What are you looking to do with those at Modesto?
I give people a quick synopsis of sustainability and say it's what we are corporately and individually willing to do to create a greener future for us and for our community. And so that's really the basis, is that we're looking at any way to buy battery electric gators on site or golf carts so that we don't have to deliver gas or diesel out there anymore. We're looking to fill up water bottles with using those instead of plastics and recycling and using water bottles. It's about mean green mowers, the riding mowers. There are a lot of side benefits to things about sustainability. Like, for example, the mowers are so quiet because they're battery powered that you can go in between the buildings with them and people don't hear it. Whereas a lot of times kinder kids are taking naps or special ed doesn't like it and they call them off and say, we're testing. Now they can use mean green mowers and it's fine. So we're just looking at all the different changes. This really is something where in disadvantaged communities, electric school buses are a symbol of hope and a means of change, actually changing the environment. I told people that it's kind of like when people stop smoking, their lungs get better. Well, the same is true about the environment. We saw that in COVID, how air's cleaned up as people weren't traveling. Well, this is a chance for us to really do something concrete with electric school buses and get it done right away. The sooner we get it built, the sooner we have less pollutants out there. I mean, think about it. We're taking half of our buses off the road from diesel and gas. And now that, gas prices are going up, we're looking even better and our numbers are looking even better because it's the right time. I say on some of my taglines that it's the right idea at the right time right now.
Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned disadvantaged communities. Obviously, with the clean school bus, the prioritization is to a lot of those communities nationwide. How does that impact Modesto? What's Modesto? Is Modesto a prioritized school district? And even if it is not, can you talk a little bit more about, because every school district is going to have some aspect. The Clean School Bus is based upon the U.S. Census and some other reporting that the federal government does for looking at, where students fall in the range of poverty, right? So, every district is going to have some of that. But talk a little bit about Modesto and what that environment is like.
Sure.
Are you guys a priority district? And kind of going forward, I know that there are some initiatives that are already underway and including the students as part and parcel with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Cal EnviroScreen kind of tells the proportion of need, and the percentage below poverty level is about 82% or 80%. Same as Stockton, very similar in that demographic. But the important thing about it is that we're also near the valley where there's agriculture and there's higher asthma rates. So there's higher asthma rates in San Joaquin County and Stanislaus County, and so it really is. We have wildfires. We have all kinds of things in California that, we have to be aware of. And these initiatives and electric school buses and those fundings allow us to change those dynamics. It allows us to change our community and our portion of the world. And so I think it's very important. We talked about job shadowing. Gregory High School has a junior reporter staff that was at our kickoff event. And again, they were filming and telling about electric school buses, how they help the environment. We're also doing job shadowing with our contractor, Schneider Electric, to show them around, the students around. And we also do curriculum. We're also building along with this right now as an initiative, SOLs, Sustainable Outdoor Learning Environments, where they're outdoor classrooms and where there was usually just one done in California before. Schneider Electric's actually building 6 for us here at our school sites, 6 different sites. And so that, again, some kids learn better in outdoor environments. It's also, better air ventilation out there with COVID and all the concerns about those things. So we've kind of taken an effort to make outdoor learning. And some people learn better, like I said, outside in the environment. So we're very excited about all those initiatives to kind of get those things going. And that's what we're working on in Modesto. We're leading the way and working with San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and they're one of our partners as well, as long as the municipalities, MID and TID. And we're working together. It does take a whole lot of factors. We have a lot of funding mechanisms in California that people don't always have, but we're trying to act like that single mom at the cash register. We're going to get every coupon we can beg, borrow, and steal to get what we need for our kids. So we're excited about it.
Mm-hmm. And regarding those partnerships, a very big aspect of that is utilities, and you had referred to that. I know you were telling me earlier that WRI recently published a guide to school districts to help them make that connection, because I've heard a lot of horror stories, if you will, about either school districts not, being able to engage with their utilities, or they're not being on the same page, especially in the earlier days. And we're still, as you were telling me offline, we're kind of in the wild, wild west still, definitely regarding this thing. But in the quote unquote early days, I know some school districts in California, when they first started going down the road of electrification, they thought all their ducts were lined up in a row, and suddenly, they're learning new things that are popping up that they have to do, or that the utility says, well, what about this? And that they didn't know before. Talk a little bit about that importance of how to connect with the utilities, and maybe utilizing some of your other local partners to help, make those connections.
Well, WRI put out a power planner for electric school bus deployment. That's one of their 9 keys, critical steps on how to get stuff together. And they always say that's the first thing. Now, for this EPA funding that's coming out, they've got to do a sam.gov account, and they have a lot of step-by-step stuff for people to do. But you're right. Of all the project partners that you may have out there, the utility company definitely is the biggest player, and they have to approve designs and stuff first for wherever you're working in your transportation yard. But, the utilities are key and critical. And I think in the upcoming years or months, I think they're going to also be able to help out with different programs that they get funding for, or being able to finance things. And so it's critical that you get with your utility company, because what if you, like you said, ordered buses and the charger equipment needs a transformer or a new upgrade to a panel or something, and that's a year out lead time. With COVID, we've got a lot of different electrical lead time issues. And so they're always the first person you want to get involved in it. The other thing is they have outreach programs and low carbon fuel standard programs, LCFS. I mean, there's just a multitude of things to consider, but I always let people know that that's your first step, is to work with your utility company, because they will know your needs and your history and what it will take on their end to get. And, there's different programs and funding. You may use solar or battery power if the fleet allows it, whatever their program is. We worked with PG&E, so I'm used to the bigger entities like that, and at Stockton, and then now at Modesto, it's Modesto Irrigation District and Turlock Irrigation District. And so again, it's municipalities versus whatever. You've got to work with your agents, know who they are, and get with them, and then that will lead to a successful deployment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so brass tacks here. Obviously, unprecedented federal funding that we're experiencing right now and will over the next 5 years. At an all-time high, this awareness for going toward zero emissions. But we know that we're not there yet, and it's going to take time. So I want to get your thoughts on realistically what needs to happen for us to magically get to that point where we have, 450, 480,000 or so school buses nationwide. We all know we're not just going to be able to flip a switch and everyone's electric tomorrow. You outlined a lot of the reasons why, and with all the work that needs to be done. But, I want to hear your thoughts on the world according to Gil. What would you, if you could wave your magic wand, what needs to happen over the next several decades, really, for more and more electric school buses to really take hold and, power the next generation of transportation?
I think we need champions. I think we need people to be bold, just like we talked about the Wild Wild West, where you're blazing an Oregon Trail and you're going somewhere nobody's been before. I think you need a champion in the district, and that could be a student, because I've seen students run solar initiatives and start them up. We need parents or activists, climate activists, people that want to get involved. We need board members and strong superintendents. We need CBOs that are willing to help and do all the paperwork. We need good M&O people to work in between with transportation people. That's why it's tough and difficult, because it crosses a lot of lines when you're doing transportation. It's not just a bus issue, because somebody's got to build it, and then somebody's got to create the procedures and policies and pay for it and funding. Just a lot of things to it. So I am an electric school bus advocate. I think that it's the right idea, and it's a legacy or pinnacle for my career. And I want to see us hand the baton and involve the students. I want them to learn about curriculum, why it's important. I want them to learn about how these funding mechanisms can help. And also, I want them to learn green career paths, right? I mean, they can choose to do anything they want to do, but I would like to see them get involved. A charger technician for chargers, bus chargers, makes $99,000 a year. that's just a median wage. And so again, they're good career paths or choices. I've worked with a lot of people that have a lot of doctorate degrees and PhDs and know all about the environment way more than me. I'm just a project manager who's gotten it done in a short amount of time at Stockton and even shorter here in Modesto. But I think of all the different things you can choose as a path or an advocacy, electric school buses are a good idea. And we've shown with Stockton's model that for $5 million, you can build 24 chargers and get 4 buses and get it done in less than a year. Or even the Modesto model as we pale it out and see. But I'm just saying that there are ways that we can do this and do this on a big scale right away. But I think people are responsible in each school district to either, like they've done here in Modesto, create that position so that it is my job to make sure sustainability works, or that they get together people like WRI or Center for Transportation and the Environment or Schneider Electric or A to Z Bus Sales, all the partners that I've used, Sage Renewables, Mobility House, Bluebird Buses. I can only tell you about who I've worked with and how they've done a great job for me because that's what I experienced. But we've done it in quick fashion, and we've been expeditious and very good stewards with our money. And so I just hope that this does follow through and that we can electrify. I think the goal is 2025. So in 3 years, that's going to be a lot of fast moving parts. And I don't know the economics of how to make that better on a government level, but I do know that we know the project management, and we know that if you follow the same path, a similar path to Stockton or Modesto, we can get it done right away.
So what would you then tell a transportation director in the Midwest or down south? I mean, because again, like you said, you have your experience in California, and we know that is a lot more rare. I know other states are catching up or have caught up. You look at what New York's doing, very aggressive timeline.
Yeah.
But what would you share with transportation directors out there that are maybe in the Midwest or in Central America, part of the nation? They've been, tried and true diesel users for decades. Maybe they have some experience with propane, or they are using propane, but they're very hesitant and reticent really to, electric hasn't been proven yet. Mm-hmm. We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We're worried about, what 5 years from now is going to be. What about the batteries?
I would tell them first and foremost that it's not going to be easy, but it is the right path. It does help our environment and the economy and the kids and everything else. And so I'd say that it's going to be a lot of hard work, but get your allies and also do your homework and reach out to somebody like me that I can show you project management wise, what do you have to learn and what do you have to know? And then again, I think we need like Prince Edward, that WRI talked about, and Montgomery County and all these different success stories. I think it's like the do-it-yourself things, right? You have to hear what they say, and then you have to really analyze and do your homework, and then you assess for yourself, how can I help and how can I make a difference? And I think you just take it in little bites. I just think you take it in steps and follow through. But a transportation director is going to need the support of their board and their superintendent and their CBO. So aside from people or kids that want to get involved, or parents or students, you've got to have the management back behind it and get some help. It's like eating an elephant. You need 4,000 friends mm-hmm. that are willing to eat with you. And so I think you have to reach out to those people that have done it, learn from their mistakes, and then just do your homework. But I do believe that you do see it. We had a kid that came to our clean air day thing in Stockton, and he's so cute because it was during fall break. And he came by and he said, I live real close, so I never get to ride the bus. Can I go in the bus? And I said, sure. So he walks in and he goes, new bus smell. This kid had never seen an electric bus, and he got to see it, and he was totally excited about riding in it and being in it and being a part of it. So I'm just saying there's some excitement. There is funding out there right now. There are mechanisms, and I think we should do every effort and all the homework we can to make that happen.
Well, thanks so much, Gil. Again, you have a lot of experience and a lot of information to share, and we'll certainly be tapping your knowledge and continue to do so to get the story out. So thanks again, Gil. Best of luck to you as you guys move forward with your electrification there in Modesto, and looking forward to hearing some great updates very soon.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much. And we appreciate School Transportation News.
Thanks again, Gil. You're always a wealth of information. Looking forward to hearing more on your projects. And thank you, Tony Corpin, for joining me again on this podcast. And thank you to our audience. We couldn't do it without you. Be sure to head over to stnpodcast.com for this podcast and much, much more. We appreciate our sponsor, as always, TransFinder, for supporting this episode. Visit STN Online for the latest on everything going on in the school bus industry. That's stnonline.com. And learn all about our upcoming conferences at stnexpo.com. STN Expo Indy is, it's cracking. We're ready to go with that one. We can still register on site, but for all you folks heading to Reno this summer, you can still head over to stnexpo.com/west and register. Do so by June 10th and save $100. And remember, you can stream and follow this podcast and share it with your friends at stnpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Thanks so much, Nation. Until next time, be safe.